All right, congratulations. It looks like you are starting your home search journey. Okay, so there is nothing more exciting than thinking about finding your dream home, and you just cannot wait to have holidays and people over. And that's all great. But before you start offering on homes, and even as you sort of do the research, you want to make sure that you are getting a combination of the best deal and also, the least amount of potential headaches moving forward. Okay, so I just wanted to put together a few guidelines for how to win a house if you're a buyer, especially if you're looking to buy here in the Northeast. My market is Northern New Jersey, and this market is extraordinarily competitive. So how do you know that you're making an offer that's going to win? My name is Nancy from Nancy Chu Homes. I'm a realtor here in Northern New Jersey. And in my 19 years in this business, I have sold over $500 million in real estate. Okay, let's get started. So this is a huge financial commitment, home ownership, okay? And while everyone's looking for their dream home, the reality is, you really kind of need to work within your budget and what your monthly payment's gonna be, and ultimately, is the town that you're interested in, can you get the house that you want for that price, right? So basically, there's several factors that I want you to look at. The first one, of course, being, what are you pre-approved for, right? And how much you've saved for a down payment. Do you know what your closing costs are gonna be and any other additional expenses like inspections and so forth. But before you make the actual real estate purchase, we have to talk about five things that factor into determining how much you offer on a house. All right, so number one, let's talk about what the current market conditions are, right? So there's two different types of markets. Well, technically three. There's a buyer's market, a seller's market, and what we consider a balanced market. In Northern New Jersey right now, I would tell you, you have a seller's market, which means the sellers have a lot more leverage than the buyers do because we have less inventory than the buyer demand. Now, if we're looking in like Austin, Texas, for instance, that's currently a buyer's market, a lot of inventory, so the buyers have a lot to choose from. And of course, all throughout the country, there's balanced markets in between with roughly 3 to 6 months of inventory. But here in Jersey, as you guys know, we have, anywhere from less than a month to 2 months of inventory. So it is very, very leaning towards sellers being able to get what they want, which means much less negotiating capability for the buyer, okay? So you really kind of have to submit an offer that is often frequently over asking and sometimes well over asking. And the sellers have the upper hand in the negotiations. As a matter of fact, sometimes around here, you don't even have a negotiation capability. You just are told, hey, the offers are due on Tuesday at 5 p.m. And then you just have to throw in your offer and kind of hope that you get the house, right? You're seeing that. You'll see it's called the highest and best. So sometimes that's what we're working with. Now, in that seller's market, one thing that's super important, and this is how I tend to work with my clients, which is we want to know what the neighborhood comparables are selling for. And I do it by, what is the price per square foot of the median, and where is this house listed, and where do we think it's actually going to land given the conditions of the house, right? Given the other factors, right? So how many people are offering, what's the condition, what are the interest rates currently? All of these things affect that. So please know whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. Okay, so I kind of jumped the gun on number two, because number two is really understanding the comparables of the neighborhood. Does that make sense? Here, I'll give you an example, which is we recently saw a house in one of our towns, and the house was listed for $449,000, okay? That was a below median from a price per square foot perspective, and the condition was quite good. It was a very move-inable house. It's not recently redone, but very clean and quite adorable. And at $449,000, it attracted a lot of attention. And to be honest, the house actually sold significantly higher, about 40% higher. And it was very interesting because out of the 20 plus offers that came through for that home, a lot of people were like, well, I put in 20,000 over, I should win this house. oh, I went 50,000 over. I'm going to get this house. So you see a lot of buyers just putting in blind offers thinking that, well, I'm going over, so therefore I must be the winner. But the truth is, the numbers that they were offering were still well below what the neighborhood was capable of accepting for an offer. Does that make sense? So the person that won the offer ended up providing fabulous terms and a number that was supported by the comps from a price per square foot perspective. So you really need to work with an agent that knows what they're doing with that. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts. And truthfully, you shouldn't be throwing darts. It's a waste of time. Okay, number 3. It's really important to understand the mindset of a seller and what a seller is afraid of. Does that make sense? Because it's very hard to win homes, especially in my area, not just with your price, but also with your terms, right? Are you going to make some sort of inspection remediation waiver, which means you're willing to eat the cost of some of the inspection stuff that you find? Are you willing to make up the difference in cash if you have an appraisal shortfall? These are all things that, they have free rent in a seller's brain. That's what they're afraid of. And so when you're making an offer, a really smart thing to do is to think about whether or not your terms pre-handle any objection a seller may have to your offer. That is often the secret of winning. Just, as a listing agent, I will tell you that is often the secret of winning, is knowing how to anticipate what the seller is afraid of, addressing it as part of your offer terms, and then the sellers go, because the truth is, if you take away all the no's to your offer, then all that you're left with is yes. Does that make sense? So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that that in a market that is a seller-centric market, okay, you have to deal with all the fears and all the anxiety that the seller has, and you have to pre-handle them before the seller, looks at your offer and says, oh, but they haven't addressed any of the inspection stuff. But this offer has. That's the secret to winning, addressing their concerns before they even, as you submit the offer, you address those concerns, okay? All right, let us talk about number 5. Number 5, one thing to think about here is, what is the condition of this property, right? The property condition is definitely going to, listen, it's very straightforward. If a condition is very good, as in we call it a nice C3, it's move-in ready, it's properly updated, it's very cute, it's painted in all the latest colors, you know what? You're gonna have to fight more for that house, period. It's going to land above the median for the neighborhood in terms of price per square foot, and you're gonna end up paying a lot more for it. And in a market that is heavily seller-centric like ours, you might be paying a number that the appraisal can't support, but you don't have a choice if you want to win, because people are coming out of the woodwork and saying, we don't care. So that's something that you might have to participate in. So I'm a big fan of considering properties that need a little bit of renovation, because you're going to reduce the amount of, competition for that house. You're going to get it for a lower price, and you'll be able to build equity in it faster, especially if you're going to be doing gentle renovations to it, not spending outrageous, gold leaf money, but, spending smart, classic, upgrade decisions that can help you grow the equity of your house very quickly. All right, number 5. Ready? Last but not least, we're just going to ask the question, how badly do you want this home? Right? You've been house hunting for a little bit. You've made 5 offers. You're exhausted. At this point, you're like, I just need a house. This baby is coming. What are we going to do? So then you end up throwing in hard on the next house. Something to remember, and I will tell you this, in a multiple offer market like mine, the person who wins the house is often the person who's been in the market for a while, has been looking for a period of time. They have some sort of time pressure countdown that they really kind of need to get into a house before. And sadly, they may have lost several houses, and the learning curve has finally kicked in, and they're realizing that they have to be at a slightly higher price point in order to win the house, or sometimes even a significantly higher price point to actually win the house. And so what I was going to say is, if you work with a realtor who can show you that information, you will spend less time learning. Like if your learning curve is good, we can actually show you data to demonstrate how you get there faster. Does that make sense? But in the end, that's what this is about, right? I would hate here's my take on this. For every single house you have a certain that you're interested in, you have a certain amount of love for it. There's going to be houses that you're like, we can make this work. Yeah. And then there's going to be houses where you're like, this is the one I want. This is it. This is my dream. Get me this house. And what that basically means is that for every single house, you're going to have what essentially is a financial limit, right? Because I've done this before. I did this with, I've done this with like car shopping, for instance. I had the car that I really, really wanted and I was ready and willing to pay top dollar for. But then there was this other car that I liked almost as much. And I thought to myself, if I could get the second car for a reduced price, then I'd be willing to go with the second car, right? So there's a correlation between your desire and the price that you get it for. So what I was gonna say is you need to know that. And if you are in a multiple offer fight and you get one shot to turn your offer in, don't pull your punches over a few $1,000s that could equal $50 a month in mortgage payment. Because there is nothing worse than finding out that you pulled your punch on a house only to discover the house sold for $15,000 higher than you offered. And it was your dream home. And you were like, why did I do that? I could have afforded $15,000 more. Make sure that the offer that you put in, okay, is the offer that if you win the house, you will be overjoyed. You will not wake up sweating bullets the next day and just being like, oh, what have I done, right? But at the same time, it's also the same number that if you lose the house, you go, you know what? It's okay, more power to them. Someone else wanted it more than we did. And let's just, we're moving on to the next, right? That magic number for every single house exists for every single client. And that's the number that you want to work with. At this point, what I want to tell you is that purchasing a house from the buyer perspective, there's a lot of different information that you have to be able to incorporate. And it's not as easy as walking into the house, looking and going, I love this, it's mine, right? Crafting an offer is pretty much an art form at this point, at least for us here in Northern New Jersey. It's an art form. You have to be competitive, but at the same time, you have to, do something that you can live with. And this may mean changing some of the parameters of your home search over time as you realize that you might not be competitive in a market that you really thought you were going to be in. So that's where I come in. If you have any questions at all about the home purchase process, especially in Northern New Jersey, you are welcome to give me a call, 917-992-3098. I can help you craft the proper offers so that you have a shot at winning. And I can also talk you through the entire process. We can discuss your options, your recommendations based on the current market conditions. And in the end, hopefully, we're gonna find you the house that you wanna be in. All right? Thanks a bunch. Listen, if you like what we have to say, please like, subscribe, comment, all those good things so that we can continue to spread our message to others. All right, guys, talk to you next week.